Hello everybody, I'm Chris Provost, and I'm going to break down what's going on between Florida and Disney. Florida's claiming Disney has criminal intent. What is going on? I'm going to break it down step by step so you know exactly what's going on between Walt Disney World and Florida, the state of Florida. But before we do that, can I just ask a small, teeny, tiny favor from you guys? Could you go ahead and hit that subscribe button? That's a little tiny click that all you have to do is hit the subscribe button. But that goes a huge, huge way to help our channel. If you want to throw a little support at us, hit that subscribe button. We really, really appreciate it. All right, now I'm going to try to break this down in one take of what's going on between the state of Florida and Walt Disney World because it is bananas, bonkers. It is so complicated. I had to read, I was reading the legislation over and over and over, and I was having a hard time. I had to reach out to my friend, Professor Andrew. He was kind of going through, but let me try to break it down in a nutshell. What is going on? And this is a game of one-upmanship. This Disney's here, the state of Florida's here. Then Disney's here, the state of Florida, and neither one of them is willing to back down. It's literally like this, like two men enter, one man leave, the battle dome, whatever that is. So here we go. All right, so here's what happened. I'm going to do a little bit of a recap. If you want to go more in depth, if you remember, I'll put a little link down here. You can watch a whole video about this whole thing and how this got started. I'm going to do a quick recap and get into it. Walt Disney was a little bit upset when Disneyland first got opened because he didn't have enough money to purchase all the land around Disneyland. So all these people came in, they bought all the land around Disneyland, which kind of makes it hard to do expansions. So when they created, going to do Walt Disney World, they got this idea of like, hey, we're going to do all these expansions. They kind of did it in secret, and the state of Florida was thrilled that Disney was coming down. So they passed this thing called the Reedy Creek development. Really what it was is it kind of gave Disney the complete autonomy to do whatever they want when they're creating. Because the original idea that Walt wanted, he wanted to create a city. And they didn't want to have to go through all the bureaucrats, the red tape, all that. And so the state of Florida's like, yeah, we'll kind of create this exemption just for you guys at Disney. And Disney has had this exemption in place since 1967. They didn't have to go to anybody other than themselves. Now, like this, it's kind of difficult because like Universal Studios and SeaWorld, they don't have these types of exemptions. They don't have this special board just for them, right? Like Disney does. Now, Disney, of course, they put all their Disney employees on this board of 5 people, and they make all the governing laws and everything's going on just for Disney. And of course, it's Disney facing. It's all Disney related, and everybody's pretty happy with that. Let me kind of explain though, like not everyone's happy. Like Universal Studios, let me give you an example here. Universal Studios, when they started to create their roller coaster, file a patent for the Incredible Hulk roller coaster, the state of Florida is like, whoa, this is going to take an incredible amount of energy, and it's going to be too much of a taxation on the energy grid, and so you had to provide your own energy source to run this roller coaster because during the summertime it's going to be drawing too much energy. Disney never has to do that. They don't have to get approval from anybody because they have this special Reedy Creek development. Well, what happened is the state of Florida was trying to pass this bill, and this bill was called the Florida House Bill of 1557, all right? And the original name of the bill was called Stop the Sexualization of Children Act. Then it was renamed the Parental Rights and Education Act. But then the media named it the Don't Say Gay Bill. And there's a lot of back and forth going on. People are upset. Some people are okay, happy with it, and other people are really upset. And Bob Chapek was a brand new CEO at this time for Disney. And according to Governor DeSantis, Bob Chapek reached out, made a phone call to Governor DeSantis, like, what do I do? Governor DeSantis gave a whole plan of what he should do. And Bob Chapek's like, that's what I'm going to do. Hung up the phone. And the next morning, Bob Chapek did the exact opposite of what he told Governor DeSantis is going to do. That really bothered Governor DeSantis, I think, a lot. So what immediately happened? Governor DeSantis says, hey, you know what? That's done. We're done with this Reedy Creek, Disney. We're going to dissolve it. You can't have that anymore. We're going to dissolve it completely. And Disney, I think you're kind of scared Disney, but Disney then came back and says, fine, go ahead and dissolve it. But then you realize all your taxpayers are going to be on the hook for everything here. And we're talking billions of dollars, and the Floridians' taxes would have gone really high. So then Governor DeSantis says, okay, we're not going to dissolve it. We'll keep it intact, but we're going to make it so that the governors, they can appoint the people who sit on this board for Reedy Creek. And it's not that way. Disney can't just appoint their people. People can be appointed by the governor. And this is important. You have to understand that it was not dissolved. This Reedy Creek was just renamed. They weren't replacing the Reedy Creek development. They're just renaming it to the Central Florida Tourism Oversight District. The CFTOD. And now the governor was going to be able to appoint who gets to sit on that board. The 5 people get to sit on the board. Disney longer gets to appoint that. All right, now I have to explain to you going forward what a rider is in legislation. So if you know what a rider is, just scroll on the bottom until you see me do this X again with my hands, and that's when we start talking about Florida and Disney again. But I have to explain what a rider is so you understand. One of the things the United States does not have is called a single bill law. Like when we write a bill, it's like a single subject law. We don't have that in the United States. Other countries have that. We don't have that. So what that means is, here's an example. Let's pretend that I'm a congressman and I'm passing a law. And the law is, make it something simple, that every chocolate chip cookie has to have a minimum of 10 chocolate chips in a cookie. That's my law that I'm passing. And everybody sees how awesome this is, and people are like, yeah, this is, yay, best law ever. And obviously this law is going to pass. Well, a rider is when a senator or a congressman, they attach a little rider on the bottom of the bill. So let's say I'm passing this bill and all of a sudden Nebraska comes in, a senator, and he attaches a little line at the very bottom of the bill saying that all Nebraska cattlemen and women get an extra $1,000 a year from the government. And everybody's like, Nebraska! And everybody's like, what are you doing? And he's like, ah! And the bill passes, the cookie law bill passes, and because of the rider, the Nebraska cattlemen and cattlewomen, they get this bonus. That's called a rider. There is also a thing called a negative rider, and a negative rider is, let's say I'm passing my cookie bill and everybody's loving it, but man, North Dakota and South Dakota, they hate it. They can't stand it. And so they come in collusion. So North Dakota, what they do is they put a little rider at the bottom of my bill saying, hey, from now on, if this bill gets passed, every baby that's born has to have their state flag tattooed on their forehead. And then all of a sudden, South Dakota's like, Chris, you hate babies. How can you have this bill where you talk about tattooing babies? I'm like, I'm not. I'm talking about cookies. And it's in my own bill. People put these things in there that's so negative and so bad that when my bill goes up to vote, I will vote against my own bill because I don't want to pass it. That's called a negative rider. And so people put these little riders in bills. It's important you understand what a rider is. And that's just how our government works. We did have a line item veto that was passed. So the president could get rid of that. But the Supreme Court struck it down in 1996. So that's what happens. That's why bills are like 700 pages long because everybody's putting their writers in it. It's crazy. Like, I could go on a whole tangent for that. Anywho, back to the story. Okay, so right before Disney was about to appoint the 5 new board, the Reedy Creek, who had their 5 people sitting board, they went out and passed some legislation, a bill, and in this bill they were talking about for the next 10 years that Disney is going to get permission to do another major theme park, 2 smaller theme parks, and a water slide park. And that's what they're talking about. Guys, hey, we're going to prepare for the future. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. What they did is they put a rider at the very bottom of this bill, and nobody talked about it, and nobody even saw it because everybody was focused on Disney expanding into new theme parks. The rider at the bottom says that nothing can be approved in this Reedy Creek, this Florida district, without Disney's approval. Disney has final say and all approval on how high buildings can be built. The state of Florida can't use the Mickey Disney icons. And how long is this going to remain in effect? They said this, until Disney decides to leave the state of Florida, which they're never going to do, or till the 21 years after the death of the last survivor of the descendants of King Charles III. So right now we have the King of England, and then he's got his kids, and then they got their grandkids. As long as he has grandkids alive, once the last one passes away, then it's 21 years after that, then the authority will go back to the state of Florida. And as long as those grandkids are still having children, and they're having children, it's going to go in for perpetuity forever. So that's what Disney did. They kind of snuck this rider in at the last second, literally 48 hours before Governor DeSantis came in. So what happened? Governor DeSantis, once they put these pointed in, they realized what happened. And then Governor DeSantis, he was kind of angry by this. He's like, hey, this isn't fair. I don't like this. I don't know what's going on. You found some kind of like loophole. And this is what he said. He says, these collusive and self-dealing arrangements aim to nullify the recently passed legislation and undercut Florida's legislative process and defy the will of the Floridans. That's what Governor DeSantis said. Well, then guess what? Disney responded, and Disney said this. Remember, this is like one-upmanship. Bam, 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 bam. Disney came back and says, hey, We've maintained the deal is on solid legal footing. In all agreements signed between Disney and District were appropriate and were discussed and approved at open, noted public forums in compliance with Florida's government in the Sunshine Law. While there was discussion at the meeting last week of striking deal with Disney, the board will likely challenge agreement in court. So basically what Disney is saying right there is, hey, we did everything normal. We passed the law. It was done in public. Yes, we understand that the focus is on expanding all this, and maybe there's a little rider there. But if you really want to, basically the last part is, if you really want to challenge us, you're going to challenge us in court, and nobody wins Disney in court because Disney has all the money in court, right? So that's kind of what they said. Well, then, because Disney assumed that Governor DeSantis was going to sue them and say, this is wrong, and take him to court. Well, then Governor DeSantis, this is just, it's like a soap opera, guys. Every day something happens different. I'm like, what is going on? Then Governor DeSantis, he responds, and instead of responding by saying going to go to court, what he did is he wrote a letter to the chief inspector in general, Melinda Miguel of Florida. And apparently she's the chief inspector general, and she actually has the authority that she can look at something and say, hey, that's not done in the right business. She can nullify things. So he wrote a letter to her, and he said this. He said, these collusive and self-dealing arrangements aim to nullify the recently passed legislation, undercut Florida's legislative process, and defy the will of Florida's. And then he went on to say, look for civil and criminal laws and ethics requirements. He's asking this chief inspector to look at the 5 people who are on the board, saying, hey, when they passed this bill, were they doing anything that was civilly or criminally criminal? Guys, we're talking jail time that was just basically just looking for the benefits of Disney and not for the state of Florida. Because if they are, then maybe they could be fined for criminal law, which, I mean, they're going to, what? So now he's like, hey, look and see if they're going to do this criminal. And if it is criminal, then all of a sudden this would nullify this, and the authority would go back to the people at Governor DeSantis. And those people could be put in jail, possibly, or have some civil. I don't think that would ever really truly happen, but I think that's a threat that they're looming on top of everybody. What? And then, but you think it's done, right? You're like, is it done? No, it's not. Because then Bob Iger responds to the letter that Governor DeSantis, I mean, this is just, it's like 2 kids in a sandbox playing with one toy. And they're like, give me that. And I'm going to go home. You get my toy and blah, 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 blah. Okay, so Bob Iger, 2 days ago, had their quarters earning, the annual quarter. Every quarter they have their earnings call. And in their earnings call, somebody mentioned this. They're like, hey, what's going on with you in the state of Florida? And then Bob Iger had a prepared statement. And what he said was this. He said that if Florida was to push back on this Reedy Creek, that's anti-business, not only anti-business, but anti-Florida. He says that during the next 10 years, Disney is prepared to put in $17 billion into the economy of Florida and create 13,000 new jobs. So he basically is getting up there saying, why is Governor DeSantis going to do anything against us? That's bad business. And if he does that, I mean, we're going to put all this money in the state. We're going to put all these jobs. But then people said that this is called grandstanding. Grandstanding is when you get up and you say something really important. It sounds important, but you're just doing it to look really good. Because people immediately are like, wait a minute. Did you say you're going to hire 13,000 new people? But at the same time, right now, you're letting go 7,000 other employees? What are you talking about? So it doesn't really make sense. I don't know. They're talking about the future, and then when the company gets stable, they're going to hire new people. This is just an escalating war. It literally, every single day, I get a new article or I get a new memo from somebody saying, did you see what's going on? It is incredibly complicated. I have simplified it. It seems incredibly stressful and like some bad news, all this. But we do have some good news here at Provost Park Pass. For those of you who are thinking of going on a vacation to Walt Disney World or Universal Studios Orlando, we got some really good deals for you. Right now, if you call this number, 1-855-GETAWAY, and you tell them Provost Park Pack sent you, and you buy tickets to Universal Studios, if you buy a 3-day ticket to Universal Studios, they're going to give you 2 days free. You get a 5 days for the price of 3. Or Disney's, they also have a deal. They're saying if you buy a 5-day ticket, they'll give you 2 days free. But you have to call that number. You have to tell the Provost Park Pass sent you. So, I mean, if you're thinking about going on vacation, this is the time to buy your tickets. The tickets are good till end of 2024. So you guys can hold on to them and save a little bit of money. This is kind of crazy. Hit that subscribe button, guys. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. I hope that this makes sense to you guys. I know I was talking fast because there's so much information. But if you have more information about this, put it down in the comments down below. I would love to learn from you for those people who are maybe working on the inside or have some inside information, or say, hey, didn't think about this or think about this? Put us more information, because this is an incredibly complex topic, and I try my best to simplify it for everybody. All right, guys, you have a fantastic day. And wait, real quickly. Remember how important you are. You are amazing, and you make the world a better place. Did you know that? And I mean that. I am talking to you. You are absolutely wonderful, and the world is better because you are here. No matter what's going on in life, no matter how bad it gets or what's going on, you're going to get through it. Don't ever forget that. You have a friend in Pros Park Pass. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.